This video is going to give you 10 tips to get better at Warzone right away. Whether you're a beginner or someone who's been playing Warzone since the launch of the game, this video can give you 10 tips to improve your game overall. If you enjoy videos like this, weapon comparisons, weapon breakdowns, and just overall tips and tricks from Warzone, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. Also, go ahead and click the link in the description down below to follow us over on Twitch. We're going to be live streaming regularly, and that way you can ask us questions. The first tip is all about loadout drops and making sure you're getting them as safely as possible. A lot of the buildings around the map allow you to pick up loadout drops through the walls, so if you have a loadout drop on the roof, you can actually be on the second story of that building and collecting your loadout safely from the second floor. Obviously, this is going to depend on the thickness of the walls. Usually a good rule of thumb is if you can wall bang through it, you can also collect your loadout through it. But this is allowing you to get your loadout extremely safely without having to go on the top of a roof and potentially get sniped. Another quick bonus tip about loadout drops is if you're indoors, drop the loadout on the bottom floor of your building. Not only will the loadout drop land on the roof, but that red flare won't be visible to enemies. The next tip I see a lot of people getting wrong, but the only time you should overcommit to a gunfight is when you get the first knock on your enemy team. If you're engaging with a team at a distance, you should only push that fight once you've knocked 1 to 2 players in that opposing team. And this is what all the pro players do to ensure they have the advantage going into a gunfight, because the enemy team is now already outnumbered. Another huge tip that is going to allow you to win way more gunfights is making sure you drop shot and jump shot when you're shooting at enemies. This is extremely important, especially inside close quarters gunfights where every bullet counts. If you do a jump shot or a drop shot in between a gunfight, this could be the difference on life or death. To do a jump shot, all you need to do is jump whilst you're shooting, so press the X or the A button on your controller. To do a drop shot, you need to hold down the crouch button whilst you're aimed down sights to do a drop shot. Now, even more skilled players learn how to bunny hop, which is really difficult to do, but once you master it, it can be extremely useful. But like I said, even just a simple jump or drop shot can allow you to win way more gunfights, and you definitely should be using it. Speaking of jumping, a tip that not a lot of people know about is that if you jump and throw your lethal or tactical equipment, it goes much farther than just throwing it standing still. And now that the throwing distance on the C4 has been nerfed, this can be extremely useful to make sure you get your C4 on that enemy vehicle. Or maybe now you could throw your Semtex or your stuns in that window of that building that you never thought you could reach. Another huge tip, and this might seem very obvious, but make sure you use your tactical as well as your lethal equipment. Not only is it going to give you a bigger advantage of being a more skilled player, so if you know a player is definitely better than you in gun skill, if you stun them, you have a better chance of winning that gunfight. You should also use them to check for campers inside buildings as well, so make sure you throw a stun in a window to make sure the building's clear. Even if you're not running a heartbeat sensor, you can still get a lot of information by throwing a stun or a Semtex inside a window. And don't worry about running out of stuns and Semtexes. I feel like this is the reason why a lot of people don't actually use their equipment, because they feel like they'll run out. But every time you kill an enemy, this is going to refresh. Most players will be running Semtexes or C4 or stuns anyway, so you'll be easily replenishing these on the go. Another huge tip is about ladders. Now, people hate using ladders inside Warzone because if you jump off, you could actually fall to your death. And it's not usually climbing up the ladders is the problem, is if you're trying to get down the ladders, it's really difficult to do. But if you press and hold the crouch button, it allows you to actually slide down the ladder much quicker than if you were to jump off. And not only that, it's much safer too, because in case you don't know what the fall distance is, you don't need to worry about that, you can just slide down the ladder. Speaking of fall damage distance, every single player in Warzone should know what the fall damage distance is. If you're on top of a building, you do not want to have to parachute off every single time, because it's going to leave you vulnerable to getting shot down. So the fall damage distance inside Warzone is about 13 meters, so if you're standing on top of a building and it's 13 meters to drop, you can actually jump off that building without having to parachute. This makes you much more agile and stealthier when you're killing opponents because they do not hear that parachute sound. Just a bonus tip, if you do not know how tall a building is, all you need to do is stand on the top of the building and aim down and ping the ground. And this will tell you the exact distance of your jump so you can decide on whether you should use a parachute or not. The next two tips are really big tips all about contracts inside Warzone. And the first one is about scavenger contracts. So we all know that scavenger contracts, you pick them up and you go to each location and open every loot box. But what a lot of players don't know, that you can actually use a scavenger contract similar to a tactical insertion. What this means is that if you and your team have a scavenger contract in progress and you get fully squad wiped, and let's say you do have your loadout guns and you want to go back to them, when you redeploy, instead of redeploying halfway across the map, you actually deploy near the scavenger contract. Let's say you've just picked up your loadout guns, half of your team is dead, and you know you're going to die soon, and there's a scavenger contract nearby, and your teammates want to go back to collect their guns. Pick up that scavenger contract. Not only is it going to help you out to get your other teammates back if you need to buy them back from a buy station, but it also means they can go straight back to their loot. The next tip is all about bounty contracts and how they work. So if you're on yellow threat, that means the enemy is over 150 meters away from you. If you're on orange threat, it means enemies are between 75 and 150 meters away. And then if you're on red threat, it means enemies are less than 75 meters away. Now this is extremely important to know both ways, whether you are looking for a bounty or whether you're being hunted. You should know the distances that all these stages show up at, so you've got the advantage over your opponent and you can position yourself better for that gunfight. If your threat level has went from orange to red, your enemies have breached a distance of within 75 meters of you, and you should be looking for your next piece of cover to give you the advantage. The next tip is all about your heartbeat sensor and how to read it extremely quickly. Now what I used to do, and what I've seen a lot of players do, is wait until they see the dot show up on the heartbeat sensor. I've died so many times doing this because I've been holding my heartbeat sensor for way too long and enemies can kill me so easily. So an even faster way to read your heartbeat sensor is to pull it out, and if no numbers show up at the bottom, then that means there's no enemies nearby, or even if there are enemies nearby, they're going to be ghosted players. And that way you can quickly put your heartbeat sensor away. But if a number does show up at the bottom, you can then keep the heartbeat sensor out to see exactly what direction the enemies are coming from. And just a quick bonus tip with the heartbeat sensor, every time you run past a building from the outside, just have a quick scan of inside of the building. Without having to enter it, you'll see if anyone's camping. There you have it, 10 tips that will make you a better Warzone player. This is part 2 to a previous video we made. So if you want more tips to get better, you can check that video out at the end of this one. And also subscribe to the channel, as we're always making videos like this to help you improve your game. Don't forget to follow us over on Twitch as well. We want to achieve our goal of 500 followers over on Twitch too. We just had our first live stream a couple of days ago, and it is on the Twitch channel for you to view again. But now that everything is set up, we're going to be live streaming much more consistently every single week to give you even more content. So come over there and ask us some questions and just come and hang out. That's all for today's video, and thank you very much for watching.